If you're buying or selling your house, there is one very important aspect that you need to learn about. In this week's Realty Rant, Vince Arcuri and Victoria McGuire from Cooperative Real Estate discuss appraisals. Can be a very scary topic, but I do need to first point out, Vince, Victoria and I had a lot of fun last week when you were out of town. So welcome back, perhaps?
I can't help it. Cooperative Real Estate is growing so fast, I'm going to periodically miss an episode or two. So, Victoria, you did very well, very well.
Thank you. Vince is back, and I can't believe the suit that you're wearing, though, Vince. Really?
Listen, this is a custom Tom James suit, so what do you mean? Like it's
Tom James? I think we're like Rick James.
Okay, well, stop it, and let's go to our, don't we have a segment going on?
I was going to say, I saw he's stepping it up. I think it's because we did so well last time.
This is Realty Rant, not Victoria Rant, so let's move on to the segment.
Yes. Another segment. This segment, though, is about appraisals, which really can send shivers down a spine. It is a scary thing for sellers these days.
Yes, and we're having a lot of problems with appraisals coming in low throughout the Tampa Bay area. That's why we wanted to talk about this with you today.
Absolutely. I mean, what can people do? I mean, from the seller's point of view, how can people best protect themselves?
Well, one of the things you need, the number one and number two deal killers once your house goes under contract is the appraisal and the home inspection, which we'll address on another segment. But today, the appraisal issue is, I think consumers are just not familiar with. Back in the day, 10 years ago, we all know we had a major meltdown in the real estate market, and lenders used to have in-house appraisers. Well, now they go from a pool. It's more regulated now. And unfortunately, like everything else, it's price-based. So a lot of times they go with the least expensive appraisal company, and you have inexperienced agents. One of the things that we're finding is that they're coming from not even from the county, from the same county.
Right.
And they're not the appraisals themselves. A lot of them, not all of them, because there's some great appraisals out there, but some of them are not even from the same county, and they're not familiar with the area that they're stepping in to do an appraisal on.
So I'll say, what can a person do if they're, let's take the seller first. What is the best bet? What can people do going into the situation to help themselves?
Well, first of all, when you're getting your appraisal done, it's usually at least a few weeks into the process. So a lot of times at that point, the sellers are already packing up. The house is a mess. That's really not supposed to impact an appraisal, but it does. It kind of gives that perception to the appraisers, you know, that this house isn't what they think it is. So it's best to try to keep your house still in that tip-top show-ready shape until after the appraisal is completed. I think that's very important. And
what about buyers, Vince? What can buyers do to protect themselves?
Well, I think the number one thing that a buyer can do is to because the lender, remember, the lender is not technically supposed to talk to the appraisal, they're not really allowed to get involved with that, but the homeowner certainly can. So the homeowner can request that the appraiser being used is from the county. I know a couple of months ago, we had an appraiser came from Orlando to Tampa to do an appraisal in Cheval, didn't know the difference between east and west, and some of these communities have different HOAs. It's a completely different animal from one side of the neighborhood to the other, and it was a mess, and it was a big mess for us to clean up. But so the homeowner, as the borrower can tell the lender to make sure that the appraiser that they pick is localized and knows the market. That's going to be the best protection.
Because it's a win-win for both sides. It's not just, I mean, on that scenario can actually affect both negatively.
Absolutely. Well, you know, it's a slippery slope because as the appraisers are only giving a value of what has sold. They're not giving any future projections. And when you're in a market that's even, 10 years ago, we were in a beginning of a rapidly decreasing market. Now we're in a pretty rapidly increasing market. So it's, they're not there to gauge what the future is. So they really need to be relevant because a house that closed maybe a week ago is something will drastically change an appraisal. So they need to really be on top, be familiar with the local market and be familiar with the trends. And most importantly, you can check for those last second sales that could really alter an appraisal.
Wow, especially in the seller's market that we're in most areas right now in Tampa Bay. Well, again, great advice, you guys. Maybe Victoria, you can give Vince advice next time picking out the outfit. I don't know. I'm gonna let you guys work that out. I got to stay out of that one. But no, joking aside, for more information, call Cooperative Real Estate at 813-846-2368 or just log on to realtyrant.com. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.